These words from President Trump weren't just another bold statement, they lit a fire that's now burning a hole in American wallets everywhere. What started as a shocking comment has turned into a real economic crisis that's hitting regular people hard. Fresh news just in. Canada's Prime Minister has signed new military cooperation deals with European countries after Trump's comments about taking over their country. At the same time, the Dow Jones stock market dropped a massive 600 points as the trade fights between our countries got worse. Trump announced new F-7 fighter jets to replace the older F-30 program, costing billions of taxpayer dollars. Meanwhile, regular Americans in northern states are seeing their electricity bills jump by more than $100 every month. This isn't just some distant political argument, It's a financial emergency happening right now that's affecting real people like you and me. Your grocery bills, your heating costs, your retirement savings, they're all caught in the crossfire of this hidden war between America and Canada. Let me show you exactly what's happening, why it matters to your finances, and what might come next in this rapidly growing crisis. American products are disappearing from Canadian stores at an alarming rate. In just 8 weeks after Trump's controversial border statement, U.S. exports to Canada fell by a shocking 7%. Canadian tourists, who normally flood American hotels, restaurants, and attractions, cut their visits by 25% in just 3 months. This sudden drop has already drained more than $1 billion from the U.S. tourism industry. What makes this situation so unusual is that regular Canadian citizens started fighting back before their government did. Social media exploded with videos of Canadian shoppers deliberately emptying shelves of local products while leaving American brands untouched. The hashtag boycott became Canada's top trending topic for 15 straight days. Major American companies are feeling the pain. Walmart Canada reports sales have dropped 12% compared to last year. McDonald's has been forced to close 15 locations across Canada as customers stay away. Even American clothing brands are seeing Canadians choose local alternatives instead. This is the most significant grassroots economic rebellion in North American history, says Janet Wilson, a former Commerce Secretary. We've never seen ordinary citizens coordinate economic action at this scale before. The relationship between the U.S. and Canada isn't just any partnership. At over $600 billion in annual trade, it's America's largest two-way trading relationship in the world. That means nearly $2 billion worth of goods and service crosses the border every single day, or at least it did until now. Most Americans don't realize how dependent we are on smooth relations with Canada, explains trade expert Michael Roberts. It's not just maple syrup and hockey sticks. It's energy, auto parts, medicine, food, and thousands of components that keep American factories running. This massive economic partnership now hangs in the balance as tensions continue to rise on both sides of the border. As tensions with Canada grow, serious questions are being raised about America's spending priorities. President Trump's announcement of developing new F-47 jets to replace the already expensive F-35 fighters comes with a price tag in the billions. This is part of America's massive $800 billion yearly defense budget, more than the next 10 countries combine and spend on their militaries. Critics are asking tough questions. Why are we pouring more money into new fighter jets while cutting funding for schools, health care, and infrastructure? Senator Martha Johnson put it bluntly, "We're building new planes to defend ourselves from imaginary enemies while picking fights with our closest friends and allies." The economic battle escalated dramatically when Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, claiming national security concerns. When Canada protested, Trump doubled down, literally, by increasing those tariffs to 50%. Canada's response was smart and strategic. Ontario AU, Canada's industrial heartland AU, imposed a 25% tariff specifically on electricity exports to the United States. This targeted approach hit northern U.S. states exactly where it hurts, especially with winter approaching. Rebecca Thompson, a financial analyst who studies energy markets, explains the real-world impact. This isn't just some abstract policy debate. It means an extra $100 or more on monthly bills for millions of American families across the northern states. Manufacturing costs are rising for everything that contains metal components, from cars to refrigerators to construction materials. The effects rippled through the economy immediately. Heavy industry in states like Michigan, Minnesota, and New York faced skyrocketing production costs. Small businesses that work with metal, from auto repair shops to construction companies, had to raise prices or cut staff. "I've never seen costs rise this quickly," says Jason Martinez, who owns a construction business in Buffalo. "Steel prices jumped 40% overnight. We had to call clients and explain why their project costs were suddenly thousands of dollars higher. Some canceled entirely." Markets hate uncertainty, and right now they're drowning in it. The White House promises economic patriotism will prevail, but the numbers tell a different story. The U.S. stock market has plunged in 6 months as trade wars escalate on multiple fronts. Over $20 billion in direct losses from tariffs have already been recorded, money that's disappeared from retirement accounts and investment portfolios of ordinary Americans. Economic experts and government officials seem to be living in completely different realities. Economists have raised the probability of a U.S. recession to 20%, a 1 in 5 chance that the economy could start shrinking. Meanwhile, administration officials continue to claim we're experiencing unprecedented economic strength. Manufacturing jobs are disappearing in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, states that are crucial politically. Yet official statements celebrate record employment without acknowledging these losses. The contradiction leaves workers and investors wondering who to believe. CEOs from America's largest corporations are speaking out publicly against the tariff policies, while privately seeking government protection and exemptions. Tech company leaders warn about supply chain disruptions, while agricultural executives report lost markets that may never return. Wall Street faces what J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon describes as a crisis of confidence, the exact same terminology used before previous market crashes and recessions. Investment advisors are telling clients to prepare for continued volatility. The mixed signals are creating paralysis, explains financial planner Sarah Rodriguez. "My clients don't know whether to invest, save, or prepare for a downturn. When people don't know what to expect, they typically freeze, which itself can hurt the economy." The fundamental question facing Americans: is this economic patriotism, as claimed, or economic self-harm? And how long can family budgets withstand the pressure? Late-night television has found a rich source of material in this diplomatic meltdown. Stephen Colbert quipped, "Trump wants to annex Canada, finally answering the question, how do you make maple syrup even more expensive?" The audience roared with laughter, but the underlying economic reality isn't funny for those affected. John Oliver devoted an entire segment to Canada's surprising economic muscle, highlighting how America's polite neighbor transformed into America's financial nightmare. The segment went viral with over 20 million views, educating Americans about just how intertwined the two economies really are. Social media exploded with memes showing Canadians apologizing while removing American products from shopping carts. "Sorry, but we can't buy your stuff anymore," became a catchphrase. One viral video featured Canadians at the border and saying sorry, while turning around to vacation elsewhere, illustrating the billions in tourism losses. Canadian comedian and Russell Peter captured the mood. Americans never realized that Canada's superpower is passive-aggressive economic warfare. "We don't need guns, we just need to stay home and shop locally. America depends on us buying their stuff way more than they ever knew." Even American comedians found humor in the situation. Dave Chappelle remarked, "Trump picked a fight with the only country that still liked us. That's like insulting your last remaining friend and then wondering why you're eating lunch alone." The jokes reflect an uncomfortable truth, though. Many Americans are only now realizing how important the Canadian relationship is to their daily lives and economic well-being. Political reactions to the Canada crisis reveal America's deep divisions. Democratic political strategist James Carville didn't mince words. "Trump created an enemy out of our closest ally. That's not just bad diplomacy, it's economic self-destruction. He's burning down the house to prove he can light a match." Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, normally reserved in his criticisms, called the approach to Canada the most significant strategic miscalculation in North American relations in a century. Coming from a respected Republican foreign policy voice, the criticism carried extra weight. Chris Rock's assessment during a stand-up performance went viral. "Trump is a bully. America doesn't know how to handle. He picked a fight with the nicest country on earth and has somehow lost money doing it. That takes special talent." Meanwhile, political commentators note J.D. Vance's rise and perceived disconnect from his working-class origins as he defends policies hurting the very communities he once wrote about in Hillbilly Elegy. Critics point out that his support for tariffs that drive up costs for working families seems at odds with his personal narrative. Conservative economist Milton Brooks offers a different view. "Short-term pain for long-term gain. America must reassert economic sovereignty, even if it comes with a temporary kick." Previous administrations allowed unfair trade practices to continue for too long. Fox News host Laura Williams defends the approach. "Sometimes you need to shake things up to get a better deal." Canada has taken advantage of American generosity for decades. The division reflects a deeper question facing the country. Is economic nationalism worth the very real costs it imposes on regular citizens? And who ultimately pays the price for these policy decisions? What started as a U.S.-Canada dispute has evolved into a global economic realignment. The European Union, America's largest trading partner collectively, is now preparing retaliatory measures against U.S. tariffs. This threatens to cut off critical markets for American agriculture, technology, and manufacturing. France has dramatically strengthened its trade ties with China, with bilateral trade reaching nearly $79 billion, a historic shift away from traditional Western economic alliance. President Macron stated plainly, "Europe cannot rely on inconsistent American policy. We must diversify our partnerships." Military relationships are shifting too. Japan and South Korea have signed new defense agreements with Canada, creating joint military exercises that explicitly exclude the United States for the first time since World War II. Defense analysts called this a seismic shift in Pacific security arrangements. Global supply chains, the complex networks that bring products from factories to store shelves, are fragmenting as companies seek stability outside North America. Major manufacturers report opening new facilities in Europe and Asia rather than expanding in the U.S., citing trade policy uncertainty. Harvard economist Sarah Patel warns about historical patterns. We're witnessing the early stages of what could become a full-scale global trade war. Historical precedent from the 1930s suggests this rarely ends well for anyone involved. The Smoot-Hawley tariffs of that era deepened and lengthened the Great Depression. International investors are shifting billions away from U.S. markets into what they see as more stable economies. Foreign direct investment in the United States has dropped twice as companies delay or cancel plans to build facilities or create jobs in America. The international reputation of the U.S. as a reliable business partner is suffering long-term damage, explains global trade expert Robert Chen. Trust, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. Companies make investment decisions on 10 to 20-year timeframes, and right now America looks unpredictable. The economics behind the tariff policy falls apart under close examination. Government economists' own models projected $4 billion in protection for the U.S. steel industry, while costing American consumers over $20 billion in higher prices up. A 5-to-1 negative ratio for every job potentially protected in steel production. 5 more are threatened in industries that use steel. Internal White House documents, recently made public, reveal that advisors warned this approach would protect approximately 150,000 manufacturing jobs, while endangering 1.2 million retail and service positions. The warnings were apparently dismissed. Former Treasury official Robert Miller explains the fundamental miscalculation. The strategy assumed Canada couldn't effectively retaliate. That was wrong. The electricity tariff countermeasure was brilliantly targeted, hitting American households directly during an election season when people are most sensitive to their bills. The original tariff justification cited national security concerns about dependence on foreign steel. However, Canada has been a military ally for over a century and is part of critical defense arrangements, including NORAD, which protects North American airspace. Using national security as the justification for tariffs against Canada undermined America's credibility globally, notes defense analyst Jennifer Parker. If Canada represents a security threat, then the term has lost all meaning. The strategy also failed to account for behavioral economics, how people actually respond to economic policies. Consumer boycotts intensified far beyond any economic model's prediction. Corporate earnings reports show American brands losing market share not just in Canada, but globally as perception shifts. Once consumers develop new buying habits, they rarely switch back completely, explains retail analyst Thomas Wong. American companies may have permanently lost market share, even if the trade dispute is resolved tomorrow. The economic pain is spreading across America's heartland. Michigan reports 12,000 automotive manufacturing jobs suspended as steel prices make production unprofitable. Minnesota's electricity costs have surged 22% following Canadian export tariffs, forcing small businesses to cut hours or staff. National retail chains announce holiday season hiring reductions of trust amid consumer spending concerns. Small businesses with fewer resources to weather the storm suffer disproportionately. Chicago's restaurant owner Maria Gutierrez explains her impossible situation. Food costs are up 18% because of tariffs on Canadian ingredients, but customer spending is down 12% as people cut back. We're caught in the middle of a fight we'd never asked for. Agricultural exports to Canada have dropped 32% as the substitution accelerates. Canadian Bay and supermarkets are now stocking vegetables from Mexico that used to come from California, explains Farm Bureau Representative John Winters. Those are potentially permanent market losses. Once supply chains change, they rarely change back completely. The housing market shows signs of stress too. Construction costs have risen due to higher prices for Canadian lumber and steel, making new homes less affordable exactly when interest rates are already rising. First-time home buyers are particularly squeezed out of the market. Financial planner Thomas Jenkins offers a sobering assessment to his clients. We're adjusting retirement portfolios to account for extended trade disruption. This isn't a one-quarter problem, it's a multi-year economic realignment. People planning to retire in the next 5 years may need to reconsider their timelines. Perhaps most concerning are the second-order effects now emerging. Credit card delinquencies have risen as households struggle with higher costs. Auto loan defaults are increasing. Food banks report 23% higher demand across northern states, most affected by energy price increases. The economic damage compounds over time, explains economist Rachel Turner. A family that drains savings to pay higher heating bills this month has less resilience for any future financial challenge. The effects cascade through household finances for years. As the economic situation deteriorates, government response appears increasingly chaotic. The Commerce Department releases reports claiming minimal economic impact from tariffs, while the Labor Department simultaneously announces significant job displacement due to trade disruption. Citizens and businesses are left wondering which assessment to believe. Congressional hearings reveal no coordinated economic response strategy exists. When asked about plans to address rising energy costs in northern states, officials from 3 different agencies provided contradictory answers. Senator James Richardson responded, "So basically, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, while American families pay the price." Emergency management funds face rapid depletion as Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and New York request federal assistance for energy cost increases. Internal documents obtained through Freedom of Information requests show planning failures. No contingency for Canadian electricity tariffs, despite the obvious retaliation risk. Former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen's assessment is blunt. This represents the most significant self-inflicted economic wound in recent American history. The lack of coordinated response compounds the damage daily. Her criticism carries particular weight, given her reputation for measured, nonpartisan economic analysis. Small business assistance programs report being overwhelmed by applications but underfunded to provide meaningful help. We've received 4,000 emergency loan applications, but have funding for perhaps 400, admits Regional Small Business Administration Director Mark Peterson. We're telling business owners to look elsewhere, but there's nowhere else to look. State governments struggle to fill the void. Minnesota's governor declared an energy cost emergency and redirected $50 million from road construction to heating assistance programs, a temporary band-aid that creates different problems down the road. Public confusion grows as contradictory statements continue. A recent poll shows 61% of Americans don't understand the specific reasons for the Canada dispute or what would resolve it. As the one frustrated citizen told reporters, "I just know my bills are higher, and nobody seems to have a plan to fix it." 11. Conclusion. End with suspense. The crisis timeline accelerates as winter approaches, northern states already facing energy shortages and price spikes. The holiday retail season, when many businesses earn their yearly profits, begins with weakened consumer confidence and reduced spending power. Corporate earnings reports due next month will reveal the full economic damage, potentially triggering another round of market volatility. 3 critical questions remain unanswered. First, will diplomatic relations recover before permanent economic damage occurs? Secret talks are reportedly underway, but sources close to the negotiations describe fundamental disagreements about how to move forward. Second, can average Americans absorb the financial impact as costs continue rising, with savings rates already low and credit card debt at record highs? Many families have limited financial flexibility to handle these new pressures. Third, will market stability return, or are we witnessing the early stage of broader economic decline? Investment strategists remain divided, with some recommending defensive positions, while others see opportunity in the chaos. This situation remains extraordinarily fluid, explains economic historian Patricia Murphy. What makes this crisis different from previous trade disputes is the speed at which it's evolving and the direct impact on household finance. Most trade wars affect companies first and consumer later. This one reversed that pattern. In our next video, we'll explore specific protection strategies for your finances during this escalating crisis. We'll cover which investments might actually benefit from this conflict, how to reduce your exposure to the hardest hit sectors, practical ways to minimize the impact on your monthly budget, and early warning signs that things are getting worse. Subscribe now for immediate notification when that analysis becomes available. We're monitoring developments daily and will provide updates as the situation evolves. What do you think? Will this conflict resolve, or is this just the beginning of a new economic reality? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective helps us shape our upcoming coverage of this rapidly changing situation. The battle between America and Canada might seem distant to some, but its effects are already in your wallet. Stay informed, stay prepared, and we'll get through this together.